Hello, and welcome to Biddeford Today. I'm your host, Roger Hirschbees. Today I have two special guests. To my left is Mayor Alan Kazimant, the mayor of the city of Biddeford, and to his left is Mr. Matthew Eddy, who's the Director of Economic, Community, and Development for the city of Biddeford. And welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
We're going to be talking today about what's happening in the city of Biddeford, and we'll take it from there. Alan, how long have you been mayor in the city of Biddeford?
I started my fourth term, so this is the beginning of my seventh year.
7th year. Wow.
Seems like yesterday that I just got elected for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I know in 7 years you did a lot for the city of Biddeford. A lot of things happened in the city of Biddeford. What is your goals now going forward for the next 2 years?
It's pretty much to keep the momentum going. It's sort of like catching a wave and riding it. Biddeford is beginning to get a lot of good press in the Portland area. A lot of people are moving here because of what they're seeing happening. People refer to the new energy as the Biddessance, the renaissance of Biddeford. And I think that if the city plays its cards right, invests in its infrastructure, and does what is necessary to keep that momentum going, I think that'll carry us for the next decade or 2 decades.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of potential here in the city of Biddeford.
Oh my God, and it's been, what strikes me is how Biddeford has been off the grid for so many years. Over the past several years, I've had the opportunity to meet with a number of entrepreneurs and business people and invited them to the city, and they just didn't realize what was here. Growing up, you and I, we remember the Biddeford, the vibrant downtown, a lot of congestion, a lot of shops and those types of things. But after the recession of the 1980s and the development of malls, there was a lot of vacancies. And so Biddeford became off the grid for many people. And so, for example, when I have someone come into my office that's never been here and I say, well, do you know it's a coastal community, their eyes get bigger because they didn't know that. Or if I start talking about the hospital and the university and those types of things and our parks and the river, they're blown away by all the potential that we have. And so my job is to advertise that and make that information accessible to the general public and for people who are looking at us or looking to invest here.
You know what I'm glad about what happened last year was the dredging of the Saco River. I think it's a big plus for the city of Biddeford because you can get some of these tour boats, these small ones coming out of Portland, and they can come up the river and come right into Biddeford. Because years ago, the river was really popular for people working in the mills. They were get on the boats down Lower Main Street, and they would go right up to Biddeford Pool. And some of these boats carried 600 people.
Yeah,
but a smaller version, like a ferry type deal.
Well, Rumries has plans for developing certain docks out there. We've talked about it for Mechanic Park, and certainly Saco on their side. The idea is to get those. Now we can bring those boats right up to the edge.
Because we've seen the mills grow, and the mills are still growing because of the stuff which happened over the years, and a lot of the businesses that are in there. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable, and there's still room for expansion.
Sometimes I think that we as a community don't appreciate the potential of the mills because we're blinded by what we remember. The brick walls that essentially blocked everything from Main Street to the river itself. About 6 years ago, I had a professor from either the University of Washington or University of Oregon, I don't remember which, but he was a mill expert, and he came to visit the mills, and he walked into my office and he wouldn't stop talking about it because he was so impressed by the architecture, the size, the potential. And for us growing up, I don't think we ever saw that.
No, like my parents worked in the mills, but my son went to Springfield College. I said it more than once on this program in Massachusetts, and I traveled the 495 corridor, and I seen Lowell, I seen Lawrence, I seen Haverhill. their mills, how they were, and over the years, they've done the same thing. They've restructured, they've rebuilt, and Biddeford's on the move. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Both cities are on the move here with the mill section.
Well,
No,
the
Matt,
timing is perfect. The timing is perfect.
oh yeah. Now, Matt, you just came on board for the city of Biddeford. Explain us your job, your duties as the economic development person.
Well, I oversee a department of a really talented staff. The city planner, Greg Tansley, Lynn Waters, who runs our community development program, Brad Favreau, who really takes care of much of the economic development coordination. We have Christine Ullman, who is a superb grant writer and helps us look at resources to carry out a lot of the projects that we want to move forward with. Shannon Hall is our administrator. It's a really good group, and it allows us to delve into a lot of different planning, economic, and community development efforts and try to link all of them together so that everything that's happening in the mills and the rehab of the mills will play itself out on Main Street and will result in housing rehab and job opportunities for everybody that's in the downtown area.
Now, what do you think of Biddeford?
I love it. The thing that you talked about with the ocean, it's really unusual, I believe, to have a community that has this fantastic architectural gem in the middle of the community with all the mills, and yet is on the Saco River and fronts on Biddeford Pool and the ocean resources. It's just a unique mixture of resources. Not to mention having University of New England in the middle of all this. It's just a great mixture of people and activity and resources that you just don't experience in too many other places in the state of Maine.
Now, so what do you think of our parks, the industrial parks and that stuff?
I think I've mentioned this to a couple folks. I was very surprised at the extent of the business parks, of the industrial parks. I knew that there were some. I hadn't realized that there were essentially 4, and that they were full, and that they are a very, very different group of companies, from major manufacturing to very high-tech defense-oriented companies to service-oriented companies, and then being also the core of the Southern Maine medical system right in that area, out on Route 111 and the interchange. It's just a tremendous amount of activity out there, and it's really our goal to keep that healthy and really to begin to think about other places that we might be able to expand into at some point, particularly as we begin to use up the mill space, which is something we expect to see over the next several years.
Right. When Alan and I grew up, we would never expected to see what's on 111, Alan, over the years. I mean, if we would have thought about this in the 60s or 70s and look at 111, and then all of a sudden, it's booming.
When I was a kid, I remember my mother, my grandparents lived on the mountain road, which was a dirt road when I was a kid, but my mother would put me in her lap and let me drive the car down 111 up Mountain Road. That would not be good today.
But it was amazing because it was all farmland or things of that nature, but the businesses that are coming here and are still more coming. What I would like to see is more restaurants, but of course we lost Olive Garden, Ruby Tuesdays, that type of nature. It's too bad we can't get more of these restaurant style like that.
There's a tremendous, because of the Biddeford, there's a tremendous amount of interest in restaurants in the downtown area and in the mill districts. We've had some new ones open up recently. I think we're going to see some continuation of that. We've met with the head of the Maine Restaurant Association, and one of the things that he told us was the interest of the restaurateurs in coming to the community. We met at and had a trade table at the Maine Real Estate and Development Association. Saco Biddeford is a core area that the development community thinks is the next place for things to happen.
I agree with that.
So it behooves the community to utilize its monies and invest in ways that support that development and move it forward. I think the most interesting thing about the mills is the mills themselves, even in the 1840s and the turn of the century, were innovators. They were innovators in what they did in the textile industry. And now we're seeing it replaced by smaller innovators, but innovators nonetheless, with all sorts of different industries as you walk through those hallways. And I encourage anybody to come down and walk the hallways or walk our Riverwalk.
What do you think about UNE, University of New England?
Well, personally, I thought my daughter should have gone there, but she went someplace else instead. I'm real impressed with the campus. The new president, James Hebert, is fantastic. I think he's a real good addition to the community. I think his sense of wanting his students to become part of the community in a variety of different ways is special. And I think his leadership is going to be really dynamic in the next few years. And I think you're going to see stronger links between the community, the downtown, and the UNE campus. And the UNE campus is really molding itself into a really interesting place to visit. Again, it's an open campus. I encourage people to go and visit and see some of the things and improvements that they've made recently. It's really quite beautiful.
Yeah, I know. Alan, I know you and I, we've lived around St. Francis College. Now it's UNE. What do you think of the college?
I think it's a huge asset for the city of Biddeford. I mean, and it's an academic jewel. Of course, I remember being in high school and early college and actually breaking into the gym there to play basketball, you know. But it was such a small campus. But what's happened over the last 10 years or so is just amazing to me. And again, you know, we talked about the mills and how we didn't expect that to happen. And here's a university that just has blossomed under Daniel Rippich and Mrs. Featherman and James Herbert. I think that it's really important that people know we are a college town. Again, that's something that people forget.
Yeah.
And we're the home of the only med school in the state of Maine.
I know.
Right.
I know. You know, and to me, it's amazing. And I still see some potential growth over there, building some more buildings going up. I really, really do.
I think the special thing about this is it's a planned master plan.
Yeah.
President Herbert was going through that with us. You know, it has the approval of the Saco River Corridor Commission. The plan goes before the planning board every 5 years and gets an approval. And essentially what they're doing is building out that plan. So it's, you know, if you want to know what's going on there, you can visit Greg in my office and he'll show you the plans and what their intentions are. I think it's exciting. And I think they bring a whole new brand of students with the different programs that they're looking to expand into.
What do you think of the Heart of Biddeford and the Biddeford Saco Chamber of Commerce in the city of Biddeford?
Thank God they're there. They're fantastic people, and they're a fantastic resource for our work. I can depend on them for the work that they do, whether it's organizing Main Street events and activities, or planning activities in the downtown, or attracting businesses, or with Delilah in the Heart of Biddeford, with Craig in the chamber, that more regional approach, and Craig's real focus as well on workforce development and coordinating our activities with the Center for Technology at the high school, UNE. They're great facilitators at what we want to try to accomplish.
I know that I like both groups. You know, I think they've done really well for the city, because Biddeford Saco Chamber of Commerce goes way back when I was a child, you know, in the 60s, 50s.
1860s.
Don't stop.
Is that true?
Don't stop. Don't stop. I don't want to tell you my real age. I'm young. I'm 39, just like Jack Benny was. No, I think they're really phenomenal for the city of Biddeford. I think they've done a lot of work, you know, and to get them involved more and so forth. You know, what do you see as a economic development person? What are your goals for the city of Biddeford?
Well, I want to see the activity in the mills continue. We have to address the parking structure or parking solution for the space in the mills to continue to redevelop. And there's, you know, as much as 500,000 square feet plus or minus still available, not including the Saco Lowell building on the other side of the railroad tracks. We need to figure out a place to put cars and bring workers in. You know, we're transitioning from a community that walked to work, you know, 60 and 70 years ago, to a community that's probably, at least in the short term, going to drive. So doing what we can do as a community to invest in an underwriting infrastructure that supports that development, I think is really important. As the Mills redevelopment, I think we'll begin to fill back up Main Street. We'll have enough business activity, enough people in town, downtown during the day, and then people living in the Mills at night, that those business activities will begin to flourish. And I think we're right at the cusp of that right now. So those are our two really, I think, most important focus points.
Because, you know, if you look at Biddeford, as well, when we were going back into the 60s and 50s, of course, Main Street was bustling. You know, there was a lot of mom and pop stores, things of that nature. If above them on Main Street was doctors, lawyers, beauticians, radio stations, things of that nature. And today, then they moved on the outskirts, but yet you're turning these places all into apartments. You know, and a lot of them, they have to park on Main Street, but yet they're limited to where they can park, you know, which is sad in a way, you know.
Well, we as a community need to address and provide a solution for that. That's really what we're working on right now for the City Council is coming up with a solution and a proposal that will bring us to that next step.
Alan, what do you think of Heart of Biddeford and Biddeford-Saco Chamber of Commerce?
I can tell you that both organizations and Delilah Pupor and Craig Pendleton have been always there for me when I needed something. They bring an energy and an expertise that you don't see very often. Whether it's promoting businesses or promoting the community as a whole or engaging workers or talking about ideas, those organizations are really important to my office, to the council and City Hall as a whole.
The personal energy that they bring to the table.
God.
New ideas, new.
It's infectious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Heart of Biddeford, an example. Of course, Winterfest, you know, just finished a few weeks back. Delilah has a lot on her plate. But when the opportunity to get engaged with Winterfest a number of years ago presented itself, who becomes one of the leading people? Delilah and the Heart of Biddeford. And Craig also jumped in. When they see an opportunity to enhance quality of life in Biddeford, they're there all the time, no questions asked.
Now, we were talking about the parking situation. Oh, Matt, we were talking this a while ago. But Alan, what do you think about the parking situation in the city of Biddeford?
It's something that has to be resolved. You know, of course, I've been talking about that for the last 6 years. And the hope back then was to get ahead of the curve. Well, now the curveball's dangling over the plate. We still haven't made a decision. There is no question in my mind that a parking garage will be built. It has to be built. There's really no other way around it. In fact, as Matt and I have talked about a number of times, we actually need 2 garages, but can only afford 1.
Ultimately.
And the reason for that is because the sites that are available, which includes the main energy lot, some land in the Pepperell's area, and Washington Street, none of those are a perfect fit for all the different demands that people in the Mill District and Main Street are facing. So we need a couple. So at this juncture, my philosophy is we can't afford both. Where do we get the biggest bang for the buck, at least at this juncture? And my belief is it's on the main energy side. Now again, it's not perfect, but it will satisfy a lot of the needs in that interior area, the mills, the main energy site, whatever it happens to be. From my point of view, doing nothing, sitting on our hands and not doing anything, it would be the biggest mistake we could make. Matt appeared before the council a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about Westbrook, where he used to work, and he talked about their construction of a garage there and how that was used to bring in a large business.
They got a garage in Westbrook?
Yeah, they do, right downtown, right in the center of town, right near the old Dana Wart Mill. And they built a 5-story office building and brought 400, which now I understand has grown to 600 jobs, right into the downtown. And that had a wonderful indirect spillover to all the businesses in the downtown. At the same time, a series of vacant offices that were on the other side of the main route that cuts through town were all filled with new businesses that were wanting to be part of that development process.
Go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, no, that's fine. I mean, when he said that, when he explained all of that, I remember thinking, as I was sitting there in the council chambers, why did we do that, at that point in time? And the answer is because we were too tentative. If you don't risk something, if you don't act, time passes you by. And so from my point of view, as we emerge in this Biddeford, we have to capture the moment. Otherwise, we'll be looking in the rearview mirror and it'll be too late.
I know I go to Portsmouth quite often, and we park in the parking garage, which is probably almost right in downtown. And, we park there, and a lot of cars park there. You wouldn't even know the parking garage is there in Portsmouth. And people, there's shops around, businesses are flourishing. It's amazing.
Well, and we think that will lead to further development of the Merck site, which I think is the ultimate goal that the community had when they purchased it. And
That was purchased what year, Alan? Remember?
2000, was it my second year? 2011, 2012.
2012, yeah. I was looking at the records.
So what do you think of in that particular area, Matt, where you want to put the parking garage, or you have intentions of putting it? What do you think of the general area?
Well, the master plan, I think it was Camoin Associates did, certainly laid out a very nice combination of parking structures, Class A and B office space, and also the development of a park and the continuation of the Riverwalk along the river. I found it interesting talking to one of our representatives that when they went as part of a site plan review process for the planning board, and they were on the planning board, and they went to visit where the Riverwalk was to look at the new apartments at Saco Falls, it was the first time they had been on the edge of the river and had seen the river. And they had grown up here all their lives, and I found that fascinating. So I think the Riverwalk is also a big part of reconnecting the community with the river itself. I think that whole complex on the Merck site can be very, very interesting, including, we're talking to developers about redeveloping the Saco Lowell building on the other side of the tracks.
That'd be great.
That would be fantastic. It's an opportunity for mixed use and residential development. And, in tandem with what's going on Saco Island and Saco, it's really bringing, a whole new life and energy to our downtown area.
Yeah.
I just want to interject because I don't forget
Go
it.
ahead, Alan.
It's important for everybody to know that the council has not chosen a site yet.
Right.
We're still debating
Where
the
to
issue,
go,
where to go, and whether to build. So we're still a ways going. So
course.
if people are tuning in on council meetings or whatever, it's just discussion at this point.
Right.
But from my point of view, I know what the community needs, so I have my opinion, but there are certainly other opinions out there.
I've been following your meetings. I've been watching it. I can't go to the council chambers because my blood pressure goes sky high. I watch it. You had some excellent meetings.
Well, I
everything is you guys are doing. You're doing your homework.
Well, what was interesting is more to show the community the success that it has had. We've used our resources very cleverly in helping businesses develop in the mill sector, so that we've replaced the jobs that we lost with West Point. We've increased the value in Pepperell by 3 times what it was, when it closed and when West Point closed in 2009. We've increased the North Dam mill substantially so that it's now meeting and reaching where we anticipated its revenue flow to be into the coffers of the community. And it's created that next stimulus for the next series of investments. And that was all, I thought, a brilliant idea by the community to establish a tax increment financing district out on Biddeford Crossing. And Biddeford Crossing itself, an interesting statistic, if you look at Biddeford Crossing, it created about $63 million in new revenue when it was built. The forecast for the Merck site is a similar $62 to $63 million in revenue if it's built out the way a couple of the different plans actually called for. There was also a mill district plan done prior to that. So, it's possible that we can replicate that and meet the needs of the community at the same time.
Yeah. When I was on the council in 2013, we looked at I know Clem Florent was a city councilor at large at the time. He went up to Mr. Boubier, who was the city manager, and he said, what are you going to do with that big black railroad bridge? He said, that's rusting away. What is your plans for that?
Well, I've heard somebody actually being interested in painting it, and that there's actually a fund being raised for that possibility. The train line itself and the development of the Downeaster puts us on a map that I think is important for the community to take advantage of. And I think the train will only expand in size and expand in service, and we need to be prepared to be able to serve that. We're working now to adjust our transportation system to better serve that, and to develop a pulse system that'll essentially go out of the Saco Island Bus Transportation Center with, I think, a much more efficient bus system. And I think all those pieces together will make it more livable and more available to everybody in the community.
Because I know when Mr. Boubier, we had spoken to Mr. Boubier, said there was five ownerships of that bridge, and he was doing his homework, and which way am I going to go, you know? But that needs to be re-looked at, really seriously looked at.
Yeah.
If you're putting all these planning into this particular area of the city, that railroad bridge has to be looked at, especially Saco, which you have plans for. So, which I'm proud. I'm glad of that.
Well, I think the other thing that's kind of special about all this is ultimately to take that whole Riverwalk network and the network into the downtown and make a connection up the Diamond Match, up the Saco River to the Eastern Trail. I mean, that's a special thing both for the people in the community and for the people that visit the community. So it becomes another attraction, just like hopefully the Mill Museum someday will be.
Yeah, so it will be. Alan, got anything to add?
I think it's really important to note that as part of the change that we're seeing, two things. One, that the median age in Biddeford is now 35 years old. We are the youngest city in the state of Maine. People are moving here, kids are moving here. Of course, anybody under 50 is a kid to me, but kids are moving here because there's something that they like. I was talking to an individual who works in a local restaurant, one of the newer local restaurants, just a couple of weeks ago. He's probably 30. And I asked him, well, do you live here? He goes, yeah, I moved here. And I asked him why. And he said, because I like the vibe. Mm-hmm. There are things to do here. And he likes the direction that we're in.
Good.
So you have younger people who are coming here because we offer them something. And again, as I talked earlier, I think it's really important that we capture that wave and that moment, because all the decisions that we're making now is not for today, it's for the needs of the future. That's the way you have to think this out. Mm-hmm. So I was really impressed by that. The other thing that's really cool that was somewhat unexpected to me is that, of course, the city invested a lot of money in terms of flowers and new crosswalks and new lights in the downtown. And what that did was triggered community pride. People started bragging about Biddeford. Mm-hmm. And that was something that, I had seen waned over the years. For example, in the last 40 years, I've noticed how Franco people, for example, changed their names, they anglicized them. They disconnected from their past. Or people on social media, rather than put down they were from Biddeford, in the Portland area. But what's happened over the last year is people are saying, I'm from Biddeford, and I like it. And if someone, again on social media, criticizes Biddeford, I notice people jump on to defend it. I think it's a great place to be. There's a buzz about the community now.
You watch TV and different channels. I'm not talking local, I'm not talking our local channels here in Maine. I'm talking like ESPN, MSNBC. Somebody created advertising for the city of Biddeford, and it was a totally brand new ad I saw, was it last week? And I was very, very, whoever did it, I was very, very impressed with it because they were showing Biddeford. And it was a Class A act they did. It was unbelievable, promoting the city. You people, if you haven't seen it, if you have a chance, it's amazing what these people have done with this.
Much thanks to Jennifer Keneally and her work with us as part of our program to promote the community.
Yeah, that was excellent, excellent, excellent. You know, they were showing on different channels, at different times, you know. It was amazing. Now, Matt, you want to start your own TV show, I heard?
Well, thank you for introducing me and allowing us to talk about it. But what we want to do, and it has a lot to do with what we were talking about. We want to let people know what's going on in the community, and so we're going to start a program, Believe in Biddeford, which is going to focus on the day-to-day issues and planning issues and development issues that we're facing, and try to do a monthly show that looks at one aspect of what's going on, so the community knows, so that they can feel a part of the success and understand a little bit better about how we're trying to do it and how we're trying to carry forward, and also provide a platform for which people can then come back to us and give us advice, input, changes they think we ought to make, how we should do something a little bit different. The idea is to let them know what we're doing and in turn learn what they're thinking.
What's going to be the title of your program?
We're going to call it Believe in Biddeford.
Believe in Biddeford.
Because we think that's where everybody is right now. There's a real positive energy that we're feeling, and we're feeling it outside the community. So we really want to jump on that and, as Alan says, ride the wave while we can.
Now, when you and I were talking a while back, you said that you mentioned you had done this before, this type of a program.
Yes.
Where was this at?
This was in Brunswick when I was the development director there, where I still live, and I've lived for 35 years. And I always loved doing the show because when I went grocery shopping, usually the same week, I'd end up getting questions from people I'd never met before. Hey, I never knew that. This is what I think. Do you think you could work that in? I'd go, well, I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea. We'll see what we can do. And it became a very positive, interactive way to talk about what was going on in the community.
That's great. Alan?
I think it's a great idea to do that, because one of the problems that we face as a government, city government today, is how to get information out to the general public. 20 or 30 years ago, everybody read the same newspaper, and there were multiple reporters with those newspapers, but everybody was on the same page. Everybody knew what was going on. Today, that's not the case. You have a certain demographic, generally older people that read newspapers. Then you have another demographic that does social media. Some demographics reveal people who are too busy to do anything. How do we reach all of them? And so it's sort of like, trying multiple approaches, because one of the greater frustrations that I have is there's so much misinformation out there that it spreads on like wildfire, that has no basis in reality. And how do you pull that back? How do you correct that? Because I think people need to know exactly what their government is doing and why they're doing it. And I think that's been lacking because of the new dynamic in media as a whole.
And we're very much trying to be as transparent as we possibly can. Really be able we're available, and you can come in and ask.
Now, we were talking about the park. I'm going to go back to the parking garage. I get a little bit more time. We were talking about the parking garage. The main question is, a lot of people are wondering, how is it going to be funded?
Well, the proposal that we have been working on, and that really was developed by Jim Bennett, the manager, and staff, really is a parking management program that melds management of the parking in areas around the community, free parking to continue in the Main Street area, free resident parking to continue, but where we do have businesses all day parking to begin to convert that into pay for parking, and then build the parking garage. And what we've seen as the combination of revenue from the paying for the parking space combined with revenue that's being produced by the mills will pay for that structure without taking any money out of the general fund. And on top of that, the goal is then to remove as much as we can, as practical, the costs of that parking, which now are borne by the citizens in the community, and remove that and make it paid for out of this program. So, you know, it's a win-win in both directions.
Because you're still in a working process anyways. Everything can change anyways. Like, you know, you guys have had these numerous meetings, and it still can, like you guys.
Well, we discussed a variety of different options and how we were going to lay that management program out at the last meeting, and we're already making adjustments based on the input that we've heard.
You had about, I think, 3 meetings so far?
Oh, at least.
Well, you know, on television.
It gets to be a
On
blur.
television.
I've only been here for 3 months, and I know that was
I'm not talking in the offices. I'm talking on TV, on the workshops that you guys had.
At least 4 that have been talking about parking structures, plus a couple side meetings, which were just kind of goes to do certain analysis. For example, we're out with a request for proposals for a peer review, so that if we move through any of these parking decisions and make a choice on location and make a choice on design, that there'll be an engineering peer that will be overlooking how we're going to do that, that our cost projections are correct, that we are in fact going in the right direction.
That's good.
I think that people have to know, as you recall, the whole argument has always been that the users will pay for the structure, that it can't fall on the mill rate. And quite frankly, if there was any belief that it would fall on the mill rate, I think the whole concept would just wither away. People also have to know that if they look at the downtown mill area, the development that is taking place in that area and converting that development into tax dollars that we're getting exceeds anything else in the community. It's that big. And there's still potential there. If we do nothing, we strangle that potential, which inevitably hurts the taxpayer, because everybody knows that you try to use business development like that to stabilize tax rates. We have a huge gold nugget in the center of town that can produce a lot of tax revenue. The catch is those mills were never designed for parking.
No,
You
they
know,
weren't. They weren't.
you have to construct a structure in order to accommodate all the potential within that zone. And that benefits everybody.
It truly is as simple as that. It really is.
Excuse me. I know Bob Dodge in 1999 spoke about a parking garage. Him and I had a discussion. And they wanted to put it on, his vision was Washington Street, where the fire department is, or where the courthouse parking is today. And that's what's going back to 1999. And Bob had seen a vision at that time.
And try to imagine what Biddeford would have been like had that vision been achieved.
Right.
You know, again, thinking back to Westbrook, sometimes what's the old saying? He who hesitates is lost. This is one of those moments, again, where we have opportunities presenting itself, and we need to act on them.
Yeah.
We got to believe in Biddeford, essentially what we're doing.
And I was shocked because, well, when he told me that, this was 1999, and he says, Roger, he says, I'm looking at a parking garage right there.
And it's, as the mayor suggested, at some point, financially, we'll be able to probably do at least 2 structures, and there's a need to have one serving directly that neighborhood and that area. What it would look like, we've looked at least 5 or 6 different options, everything from something 7 stories tall, which was out of character, to some things that might be more appropriate, but are more costly per space, because we're not getting as many spaces out of
Now,
it.
they were talking about height requirements on Washington Street. I had heard about that. Is there such a thing as a height requirement if they were one to be put on Washington Street?
There are. I'm forgetting what they are off the top of my head, but there are height requirements. I just know that the first design that we came up with was a 7-story structure that would have been as high as the City Hall clock tower. And we said, no, that's a little out of scale. That's not going to work for us, I don't think, because it's not just a tower; it's a block. But we're quite sensitive to what the garage will look like, how it will relate to the surrounding buildings.
Right.
and a MERC, if it goes there, how future buildings might mesh to it. It's all
What I
part
didn't
of the
know,
analysis.
which was, well, I should have known, but I didn't know, is that when you look at a site for a potential garage, it's all about geometry. And so when you look at the Washington Street site, the reason why it goes to 7 stories when you put as many spaces we're looking at is because the base is so small.
Right.
So you have to be able, like for example, some people have argued, let's put a parking garage next to the police station or knock down the police station. It's too small. With all the ramps and everything else, you just can't do it.
Let's talk about the clock tower, City Hall clock tower. What is your goals for that? What are you looking for that?
Well, in my inaugural address, I talked about that when you have all this redevelopment taking place on the Lincoln Street Mill, across the street from the old First National Bank, everything happening on Main Street, and you look up and you see this building or this dome that's gold paint peeling off and wood that's kind of deteriorating, you got to do something because it's about community pride. And being an old history teacher, of course, I always think in terms of history, and I know that the original City Hall burned down and they built this new structure designed by John Calvin Stevens on top of the foundation. And the people of Biddeford at that point in time volunteered to do that. They paid to do that. So here we are, and we're their legacy. I mean, we have to do something. The question is, how do we do it? Because it's costly, because not only do you have to fix the tower, we've got windows in all the buildings that are leaking. You can't open them while it comes crashing down. Even though the first...
They're dangerous.
They are.
Fell in one of the meetings I was there.
Yeah.
I mean, they're nasty. Even though the first City Hall burned to the ground, we've got a building that has no fire suppression system, even though we enforce everybody else to do it. So those are the things to do that we need to address. So what we're doing now is we're designing a plan that we'll be unveiling in the upcoming weeks that marries the clock tower repairs and City Hall repairs to an expansion with City Theater. City Theater is another one of those jewels that we have, but there are limitations there. Inadequate bathrooms, inadequate snack bar area, inadequate area in which to mingle, and the bigger issue, they have to stop production in order to construct sets because there's no depth to the stage. So we are thinking about putting together a proposal which will utilize grants, have Christine Ullman from Matt's office applying for grants, starting a fund drive with looking for potential donors to give money on behalf of the theater, and of course probably bonding or doing something, but having 3 different avenues in order to generate the money to do everything at once. Because again, when people come into the downtown, that building, City Hall, is a symbol of who we are as a city. Right. And it's important that we take care of that symbol because it defines us.
Well, and I think what's also important is that that's a core corner of the community. On the opposite side, the Bangor Savings is rehabbing the old bank building. The Lincoln Street building is set to begin reconstruction and rehabilitation. So you've got 3 strong corners, and if we can work on the Thatcher as a 4th, you've got a pretty important core piece of the community that you're addressing.
There's a lot of history in the city of Biddeford. There's a lot of history. I've lived here almost all my life, almost. And there's so much history, it's unbelievable. I keep telling people that, there's still the mills, some of these old buildings, they're still here,
Well, it's the mills and it's the people. And all of the different ethnic groups that came into the community and moved through the community over time as the mills changed. Yeah. It's a fantastic story. Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to the hour. Have you any closing comments, Alan?
Well, I just want to mention again, reinforce what you were saying about the history here. Of course, we have a cultural society that's just formed with the whole idea of promoting the diversity within the community. And in fact, they'll be choosing we're starting a Hall of Fame, a Biddeford Hall of Fame for individuals who made a difference in Biddeford and the world. I really believe that we're seeing all this economic activity, but there's another piece that we really have to do. We have to engage the past in terms of our history and the diversity, and because that colors who we are, it gives depth to it. And at the same time, we have to get more people involved in volunteering and giving of themselves. I remember when Donna Dion was mayor, she talked about unity within the community, you know, and she focused on that. And I think today that resonates even more because we've got so many things happening that are so cool. But I think it's important that people begin to break down the barriers that separate them. I mean, the reason why we have festivals, Kermesse, Winterfest, whatever, so people can talk to each other and not behind a computer monitor and, you know, clicking things away. We need to bring people together because to me, that's what builds community. And volunteerism is a way to do that.
You know, the Franco, years ago, you know, we had French organizations. You know, I just did an interview a while back, and I belonged to a certain club, and it was very, very popular. Very popular. It was good. It did a lot of good work for the community, you know. And there's, of course, over the years, people get old, and you know, we all go by our own ways. But they had done so much good for the community. That was the Fremont Club here in Biddeford. And there was another one called the Foyer, which was another French club, and they had done good for the community as well. There's numerous clubs around, and Alan will verify that. Yeah. Saint Jean-Baptiste, Biddeford, you know, all these organizations.
Yeah, it used to have over 1,000 members.
Yep. Yep. And they're all gone.
Now there's 20-something.
All gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
You know, which is sad. You know.
It's sad because again, it denies an opportunity for people to talk civilly to each other and express ideas and share common denominators about who they are.
Oh, and celebrate as a community.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the heritage, you know, like you just mentioned a little while ago, we had Irish, Greek, you know, French, you know, it was all in this community, you know. It was unbelievable. And going back into the 60s and 50s, I'm going that far back, this was unbelievable, this city, unbelievable.
And now we have a new immigrant population coming into the community, all for the same reasons.
Yep.
That they can find work here, they can afford the housing, and they're welcomed.
You got any closing remarks, Matt?
Well, only that I'm real excited about the opportunity to work here. I think, you know, working with the mayor and the city council and the staff, there's a lot of energy to turn that next corner. And we're working real hard to figure out the best way to do that and to make it happen. And, you know, I see my job as trying to manage my little area and make sure that my folks and I can do the best job we can for the city.
Yeah, because there's still a lot of opportunity out there for the city.
An awful lot.
There is, and depending how you approach it. I want to thank you both for coming. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
I wish we'd had more time. We could have gone a little ways longer.
Seems like we could have gone a lot longer.
No, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Roger Hirschbees for Biddeford Today. Until next time, thank you for watching.